Hello and welcome to Upper Pen. My name is Dakota, and today I am talking with Lindsey Pogue, author of the Savage North Chronicles. Thank you so much for being here, Lindsey.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, I actually found your books because I was reading a lot of end of the world books during COVID, and they really clicked.
Sounds about right.
Did you start? So, these were finished, though. Like, you must have been writing them for a while before the pandemic hit.
Oh yeah, I wrote this series was finished before then. There's a series in the same world that was written and we started in 2012. So yeah, was all wrapped up in a pretty bow and finished before COVID even got here. So it was really kind of trippy to have written that and then living through something like COVID. And as an author, it's like I always try and do my due diligence and do the research and make sure everything I'm doing makes sense. So it was kind of interesting to have written it and then live through something like that, and you can't help but think of the things you would have written differently. But then it was also really cool to kind of essentially realize like I did a pretty damn good job, like not having ever done it before, like lived through it myself. So they were done long before COVID, so it was pretty trippy. I've gotten some interesting reader emails and notes and stuff about, well, we lived through COVID. I wish we at least got an ability or something.
For folks who might not know what the Savage North books are, do you have a little rundown of them that you can give?
um, Essentially, the Savage North Chronicles, it is a series of 7 books, and it's a little different than a lot of other series in that there's a lot of time lapse in between the stories. So I want to start with that. But essentially, the first book starts with a viral apocalypse. There's an outbreak. Most of the world dies. Those who survive this fever are changed. They're genetically altered. We later learn that it is a genetically altered virus, which is why engineered virus, and that's why the people who survive, they have these abilities. Everybody has a different ability. It's based on their genetic makeup, etc. So yeah, the whole first book is very gritty in that it's like the end of the world, doom and gloom, and people are trying to figure out what the hell's going on with them. But then as the series progresses, it's that found family unit that I create in book one, The Darkest Winter. They each, everybody's growing into this new type of surviving and the new battles and the stuff that they have to figure out how to survive in a world that not only is kind of off the grid now, but then there's this new type of monster that kind of lurks in the corner, which is these people who have abilities, not just bad guys and good guys anymore. There's people who can have actual abilities that obviously do bad things and use their powers for good too. But so it's just kind of this whole interesting dynamic, and I feel like if anything, it kind of sounds really X-Men in a way, but feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels a little more realistic than that. Like, I don't know. I feel like everything's kind of more subtle because it's very character driven. And so it's really about these people who are learning to survive in this world, but then also learning how to control what they can do and the horrors around it. And just life is just so different. But there's obviously everyone has a really kind of dynamic backstory. So then you have all these really layered characters that, they have their own baggage on top of learning how, their fingers like heat up with fire, or they can hear things that other people can't hear, or whatever it is. So,
So it's interesting because it was really dark. So the first book is called The Darkest Winter, but it's very gritty for like a dystopian-ish uh, hellscape, I would say. And you do a really good job of keeping the suspense building that first book.
thank
Because at
you.
the end we're kind of like still kind of left with who's really the bad guy, or if
Mhm.
there is one.
Yeah, yeah. And I think one of the really cool things about this series too is, and maybe I mean, I guess it's a catch 22 because people who really loved the first book might really wish like the whole series was really gritty and dark, but at the same time, the hope blooms a lot brighter as you go through the series because time is going on, right? And they're learning, new ways of surviving and new types of people that survived. And yeah, I don't know. It's definitely an interesting series to try and explain because yeah, every book is essentially different. So, but it's all the same group, like the main found family, the chosen family we established in book one, and it's them essentially going through life after the virus. So
So I think the next books that I'm going to pick up by you are either The Forgotten Lands or The Ruined Lands. But where do I start? How do you start these? Because they're connected, right?
yeah, they're sister series. So one thing that I do, I don't know why, but I have an obsession with Mother Nature's fury. So I have bad guys in my stories, but beyond that, Mother Nature is always the biggest villain. And so I created the Forgotten World, essentially, is this really interesting world where and I should probably say that I also have a master's in history and culture. So I love historical vibes. Like I love writing little tidbits and stuff. So that series, The Forgotten World, is essentially if climate change or some sort of big global climate shift happened during the Industrial Revolution, so the Victorian era ish, and like what would that look like? And so that's what this world, the Forgotten World, really explores, which is really fun because I get to write this weather-ravaged world and these different pockets of civilization that have survived, but then I get to like what does that look like if essentially everything stopped during the Victorian era? So it kind of has it's very dystopian. It's almost kind of alternative history. And then, it has the historical, I don't know if you would call it historical fantasy vibe, but definitely has a historical elements to it that make it, really fun. And so it's two different, the reason why they're not the same series is because the Ruined Lands takes place like for us, because I live in the United States, is like what Scandinavia and London and all of those places overseas would look like had it happened, if it happened there. And then the Forgotten Lands is the continental United States. So it's like we have we have Arizona and we have the, California coast. So we have, it's just I don't know, yeah. So it's very you can start wherever you want because they're not interlinked as far as
Mhm.
characters yet. I've been working on some stories that kind of bring everybody together, but they are very much separate. They're different parts of the globe. So you can really decide what are your vibes. Do you want like old world vibes that have like a little Viking-esque, storylines and pirates, or do you and that would be like the stuff in Scandinavia, or do you want something that's more like westerny and really has like that old west Victorian feel for the US? So all
All of
about
it.
the vibes you're feeling for sure.
I was really captured by the idea of the moon gets knocked out of orbit. So, and that's what causes this calamity, right? Or am I thinking of another?
Oh, that's a different series.
Dang it.
That's a different series. So, you're thinking of the Surviving Earth Chronicles.
Yes.
So there's the Savage North, which is the
Uh,
darkest winter and the abilities and the viral apocalypse. But then you have the Surviving Earth, which is yes. So that is a world I created with a friend of mine, Kay Webster, and she is obsessed with post-apoc stuff, but she'd never had written it before. She's a primarily or very much a romance author. And she's like, "Well, you do this all the time. Like, this sounds really fun. Let's do something." And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we created a world where 50 years ago, an asteroid collides with the moon. It doesn't like explode or anything. I mean, there's still a moon, but it knocks it off axis. So it very much affects what's going on with Earth, right? And so the whole story behind it is that scientists, everybody knows that all these little changes are happening, leading to something big over time. But after 50 years, we wanted to really play with like, it's kind of like like I live in wildfire country. So you grow up like preparing, like you always know in the back of your head, like I need to be prepared for wildfires. But a lot of people who move here, it's like you can sit there and tell them all you want, but until they live through it, they're not going to go get an extra generator and they're not going to go, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so we really wanted to play with if you're, let's say you're 20 years old or 25 years old, and we call her Gertie the asteroid. And she knocks, and she devastates gravity, all the stuff that's going on within, on the globe, like 25 years before you were even born. So it's just like part of your everyday life. And you're like, whatever. Yeah, they've been saying forever that something's going to happen. And you just kind of like, whatever. It's just, I still have to go to work. I still have to pay my bills. I still have to do all these things. And so we really wanted to play with this idea of the world is kind of dystopian and that it's been changing over the years, but what do you do when shit, or I don't know if I can curse, but when stuff really hits the fan and then you like crap, like how prepared can you actually be? So yeah, that's that world. So that's the Surviving Earth Chronicles. And that one, yeah, that was super fun. That was super fun.
I have the first one, obviously, because I have the Surviving Earth Chronicles special edition that you did for Kickstarter, which is gorgeous and wonderful. And I just love this idea that it takes time for the apocalypse to happen. Like we know it's gonna happen, but
Yeah.
there's nothing to do.
Well, I guess if you really think about it, and they say that it's kind of the same thing with climate change, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we've been hearing about it our whole lives, but it's almost like it creeps up on you, even though it's constantly happening. And so it's just kind of really kind of using that catalyst in the same way as again, you hear about it all the time, you get desensitized. So at what point does it really sneak up on you and you're like, oh yeah, yeah, so this is happening. Let's hope we're prepared. And if we're not, then I guess we're gonna have to figure it out. And yeah, I mean that world I think is really gritty too, as far as I don't know. I really, like I said, I really like to put Mother Nature. I pit my characters against each other, but more than that, like I really embrace the enemies to lovers or these characters who, whatever it is, for whatever reason, and they always have to have these really deep emotional wounds because I really want them to have really logical, painful reasons why they can't be together. And I'm not saying that they're in love, but just like it's like anyways, it's a running theme in a lot of my stories. And in this case, Ava and Knox are stuck together and essentially haven't talked in 10 years because their families have been devastated by this horrible thing that happens. And the one person you think hates your guts, and then you have to, it's just the two of you at the end of the world. Like, how horrible is that? So it's just really fun to put people in the situation where they have to work together, they have to have conversations, they have to survive, you know, you know, among themselves, they have to be able to trust each other and survive and put everything aside. And I don't know, I just really love that. And so Mother Nature is like the best villain when it comes to that because she's also very unpredictable. She doesn't have favorites. She's, yeah, she puts everyone through the ringer. So it's fun. It's fun.
Well, so I do think that it's such a good element of external stress or like
Conflict or
conflict.
yeah,
Yeah. Because a lot of people make it only about, they'll have these wonderful dystopian stories or like end of the world things. And then it's a lot of like interrelationship drama, but all of that gets kind of conflated in my mind. Sometimes like they do that too much and they could just rely on the dystopian that they've created.
right,
So I
right.
like the balance that you create with Mother Nature being so scary and these characters being so human.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I try. And it's weird, and I'm sure a lot of authors say this, but I don't read a lot of post-apoc books because a lot of them don't have the elements that I want to read in them, and so I just write books that I that are missing that I want to read. And that's like, again, that's kind of why I write the Forgotten World with that has like that historical flair to it, and it has the dystopia, it has all those things, because that's what I really want. And I don't really feel like there's a lot of that or any. So yeah, I just really try, and I think for me, it's all about writing the books that I just really want to write, because I can't, as a reader, I can't find those things. So.
Your stories usually have a pretty large cast of characters too, so do you like bounce ideas off of people? Like, what would you do in this situation?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. I mean, it depends. So, and let's be clear, like I have written so many survival stories with all these, like you said, these cast of characters who can do all these things and survive in X, Y, and Z ways. You have a state trooper, you have, I don't know, you have even Jackson. I think of just him, like he's a state trooper. He's Inuit, like he has his whole heritage is about how to survive off the land. So I'm like, all these things just for one character that I had to figure out and learn. And I do that for a lot of my characters, and I'm just sitting here going, I wish I could just bottle up half of the knowledge, or even just a sliver of all the stuff, all of the research that I do, and all the things that I learn. Like I can't keep it in my brain. So yeah, I definitely like, especially when it comes to male characters, I'll bounce them off my husband. He's not a reader at all, but as far as being realistic, I really rely on him as far as that goes. Back in the day, I used to love getting together with girlfriends, and we'd like have a glass of wine, and just I would bounce ideas off them and figure out like, well, what of these scenarios would you want to read? So I've definitely done that in the past. And I have a little writer group sometimes that I talk to people about, but really the characters are just kind of in my brain for the most part. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I'm just thinking like even for the Surviving Earth Chronicles, so Kay Webster did her story.
Mhm.
I did my story. We created the world together, but the only thing we really came together on as far as characters is we wanted to figure out what's the tie, and that's the brothers. And so other than that, like we did our complete own thing. So yeah, I just kind of whatever feels right, I think. And for it just gets me thinking. I had my newest book, Land of Ash. Now that I say that I create them mostly on my own, there's actually a character in there that my husband, again, the non-reader, here's one for one of our podcast episodes. He helped me create a character to put in the story, and so there is a character that he created. I would never have thought of or written this character. So that's why it's like the most random thing for me. He's very like surfer broski, and I'm like, oh my God. But I did it. I made it work. I made it work. I was like, this is an ash ravaged world. There's no surfing. I can't just like throw a surfer in there. And I'm like, it's not how this works. But I made it work, and I don't know. But yeah. Sometimes you get creative with characters. We'll just put it that way.
Well, so Land of Ash literally just came out in August, right?
Yeah, it came out last week, actually. Yeah. Wait, I think. Yeah, and on the 26th, though. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. August.
I'm just imagining fires and surfing and
Yeah, no. He's definitely not a surfer. He acts like a surfer, but he's more of like a well, we gave him a what did he call it? It's essentially a skateboard, but it has like tough tires on it. So, anyways, readers can they'll I mean he's not a main character, but he's a fun character. So
did he come up with like the whole idea of him, like the backstory and like his
he came up with what he looks like, how he talks. He came up with his backstory. There were certain things that I had to take liberties with because I needed him. I knew I had a character that, again, I was going to just create, but I was like, hey, could be fun. Let's see what Dennis can come up with. And so he came up with Zach. He named him and everything. Yes, he has a backstory. He even has a special scar that Dennis created, how that came about, and all these things. And so, um, Yeah, he came up with everything. I just took liberties on what I needed for it to work in my story, but in general, yeah, it's all him, down to the color bandana that he wears. So,
Well, it's fun to collaborate.
yes, yes. And so, let's see. My husband says he might actually read this book since he created a character, but we'll see.
All of the books that I can find by you are pretty much dystopian or this kind of like after society kind of collapses. So, what about dystopian fiction is appealing to you as a writer?
I think honestly, again, I think it ties into I love history and I love the human condition and really picking apart how people are and how they act. Again, history and culture is my thing. And but I want to write fiction
Yeah.
and I want to take liberties. So I can't say that I'm writing any sort of historical fiction, right? So I really think I feel like I just pull apart the things that I really love. Like I said earlier, I really enjoy post-apocalyptic stuff when it comes to shows, movies, books, whatever. But I'm not a, I'll watch zombies, but I don't want to write zombies. I don't want to read zombies. Like I'll watch them, but again, it comes down to the certain things that get me giddy. And I think for me, it is kind of bringing together elements that I can really explore without I guess that I can take liberties on because if I'm creating a society or a world after what we know or beyond what we know, then it's a lot easier to kind of get away with what I want. Do you know what I mean? That was one of the struggles of trying to write something in modern day and modern time is you have to adhere to everything that we all relate to. And I don't like that because it really puts you in a box. So that was one of the reasons why for the Forgotten Lands, I definitely like writing things that are pre-technology as far as cell phones and stuff like that because it's so much easier and you have to get more creative and you're not there's so many things that can just be fixed by looking at your phone or using the internet, right? Or calling somebody. And so I like taking that element out of it. And I think that's why I like these societies and these settings where yeah, that there's just it's not normal for us. So people are like, oh, that wouldn't happen because we would just go and do X, Y, and Z.
I do like I really enjoy stories that the communication from long distance communication is difficult, right? Otherwise, I feel like a lot of things can just be solved with communication skills over the phone.
Right.
So, I
Right.
dig it.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, yeah. And it's the longer you write in a series, the more you kind of back yourself into a corner too. And so I've noticed that a lot with the Savage North Chronicles with the abilities, and we're starting it in modern time was, you really had to figure out, well, how long will phones last? How long will the internet last? Like you have to really figure out all of those things. And how can you use power, the abilities? First of all, trying to come up for, because, there's three series in that world. There's two that I wrote with somebody else, and then there's the Savage North Chronicles that I wrote. And trying to come up with new things to do with abilities, interesting things to do with abilities that I haven't done yet. But also, when everybody has an ability, it's really hard to get yourself in a sticky situation because everybody can do something to get, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and again, I really think that the whole, having cars to just get in and drive just makes it so much easier to fix a problem. And I just really like it when they have to struggle more. And so taking all the stuff out that everybody can super relate to is better for my brain.
All the modern day conveniences just gone.
Yes, yes, yes.
I always try and put myself in these situations and I take like anti-anxiety medication and I'm like I would die almost immediately.
I know. I'm a very stressful person as far as I have anxiety too. And So Ava's character from the Surviving Earth Chronicles, so specifically from Skies of Fire, she she has this. I don't know if you actually read it.
I read the
Any
beginning of it. I haven't finished it yet. Don't, no spoilers.
Okay. So she has she has some health stuff that happens. And not all that is based on my experience, which I didn't actually mean to put in there when I sat down to write her character, but I really wanted her to have some sort of an instance, some sort of an obstacle that I hadn't done yet with any other characters, which was giving her some sort of health condition where she needed medication or she needs something, and so what do you do when you're on the run and the world's on fire and volcanoes are swallowing people whole and whatever. I mean, that's not what volcanoes do, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, to your point, I wanted to write something like that, just like how are they going to survive? How are you not going to just get into a little a little ball and just like cry yourself to sleep every night.
I
So
I
I
will say, I think folks with anxiety have a better chance of the really intense moments, but the quiet moments, the moments where you have to find food or you're going to take a nap for the day, like those are the moments that I would just not survive.
yeah, yeah. I actually was going to go with some more like because she has a lot of anxiety stuff, and so I think I was originally going to go big and do something with like diabetes and I'm just going she's just going to die at this point. Like I have to do something that she's actually going to be able to survive. So she's
Uh,
not going to have the insulin, so I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. So I had to pick something that at least was semi manageable.
that makes sense. You are also very active with your reader community because you have Pogue Gone Rogue,
Hmm.
and you're pretty active on social media as well, and then you have your podcast. So how does that either help or hinder you writing?
It's really funny that you asked that. I am not a fan of social media whatsoever.
Mhm.
However, well, let's be clear. I like it for using it for my personal stuff, but when you are an author and you have to be on social media, you don't really get to do personal anymore, right? Like everything is work related. So it's one of the reasons I'm not on Facebook anymore, but one of my favorite things about being on Facebook was I had my reader group and we were all it was just, I got to know everybody and a lot of my readers became my friends and a lot of them are still, supporting me today and still talking to me today. And so I'm so tired of relying on social media to show my posts to my readers or whatever. So that's why I created my Pogon Rogue group. And like I said, I'm on social media. I don't love it. But I really am trying to lean into things that just feel right and doing my own thing on my own platform, even though it's hard for a lot of readers because that's all they're familiar with. It's just, it's easier for me because I'm in one place. I don't have to go to six different, platforms. But also, again, I can have an actual interaction with my readers, whereas it's like you just have to hope you see a post or a comment if I get something somewhere else. And so I really like doing it that way. And then the podcast I try and be really strategic in a lot of stuff that I do, just so that I'm not spinning my wheels too much, because I've been writing for 13 years now, and it's exhausting. The longer you write, the more you have to be a business person, and it takes away from, like you're saying, the joy of writing, which really sucks. And so the last year or so, I've really kind of shifted gears, and I'm leaning into the things that bring me joy and writing more, which one of them is writing more. So I I used to publish in the beginning. I used to publish like 4 to 6 books a year. And the last few years, it's just been like one or two, if that. And so I'm like, that doesn't, it's always been feeling like something's been missing. And so I'm writing more within this last year and this year. And that's why I started the podcast because I really wanted to do something that was fun. And my husband, I've talked about how he's not a reader. He's a curmudgeon. He thinks everything is stupid, especially when it comes to like because I love to read romance, any sort of book stuff, or every time he sees a movie on TV or a show and he goes, "Oh, that looks really good." And I was like, "Oh yeah, that's a book." He goes, "Of course it's a book," like so I really wanted to do something fun with him. That's why I created the Grumpily Ever After podcast because he helps me in so many ways with my characters and he inspires so many of my characters, my male characters specifically, that I don't know. I just felt like it would be a fun way for us to kind of our two worlds to actually come together because he doesn't really know what I do in my office all the time. He knows that I write books and he tells people like when they say, "What does your wife do?" He goes, "Oh, she's an author," but that's like all he knows. And so it's just a really fun way for us to come together. And so now he's learning tropes and he's helping me create characters and do things that really kind of just bring us together. And this is just a fun way it does not like I said, I try and do things that are strategic normally, but this is just like something that I want to do because I was thinking about it forever and it was fun and it sounded fun and I want to do things that bring me joy. And so we have this podcast. I can't believe he even said yes that he would do it. This is a man who hates social media and he has a podcast with me. So yeah, I'm trying to remind myself why I like doing this, now give myself more time to write and that sort of thing. So
Well, you also really, I feel like your time must have been eaten up quite a bit with that Kickstarter because that was
oh yeah.
earlier this year. But that's so much prep and then actual execution. I couldn't like
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. Like I have author friends who do multiple every year and I'm just like blown away. I was like, I don't know. They must not do anything else. Um, so it's definitely something I'll do again, but it's months of prep, it's months of follow-up, it's a lot. And so again, it's super fun. I love creating things and using my brain in a different way than just writing all the time. But yeah, it's a commitment. And like I said, I will do it again, but I couldn't do it all the time for sure. For sure. But it is
was so you have a special edition of the Savage North books on your website. Was that like a Kickstarter type of deal, or did you just do a special edition?
I just did it. So in my Rogue Reader community, I post a lot of bonus stuff in there. And so I was thinking one day that I have so much bonus content. And I have like the first book, The Darkest Winter, is I have an annotated copy of that. Like, why what am I doing with it? Nothing. So I made the this I forget what's it called? Savage North, oh, the Creator Chronicles. Yeah. And so it has all my bonus stuff in there and it has The Darkest Winter annotated and just I was like, I need to do something with all this, because otherwise why am I doing it? And so I created those and I had considered doing a Kickstarter. This was before I did this one, the one that you participated in. But I didn't know, I'd never done it before and I didn't know what the undertaking would be. And so I was like, no. It would have been the perfect thing to do though. So I think moving on, I would really like to do the Savage North Chronicles in general is coming up on, I'm sure, an anniversary of some sort. And so I would really like to do special editions or something for that. That's my series that has the most diehard fans anyway. So I think that they would really appreciate something really cool for that. So I'll definitely do something to commemorate, special editions or something with the Savage North Chronicles at some point. But like that like just the Kickstarter you participated in, it was one book. So then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if I did the whole 7 books for the Savage North Chronicles, oh my gosh. But I would like to. I would like to. Yeah. So
Yeah, I just couldn't imagine because there's so many things. And then before we started the interview, you mentioned some pe folks didn't even get their copies because they didn't submit their addresses. And I was like, that's bonkers to me.
I know. I know. I like because I love supporting authors on Kickstarter, and I make sure I reply to everything. I want to get those books. There's a reason why I pledged money, like I want those on my bookshelf.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know it is bonkers, but I know people spend money differently, I guess, or associate to money differently, I guess. I don't know. I'm like, I want my money's worth for that.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah.
So are you working on any other books right now? I assume so.
So yes. So Land of Ash just came out for the Surviving Earth Chronicles, which was actually not supposed to even be a book. So when I wrote Skies of Fire for the Surviving Earth Chronicles, I straight up that it was a one going to be a one and done. But there's a character in that story, Skies of Fire, that wasn't supposed to be there. She just kind of walked on the page. And she's young, she's a little kid. And so when Skies of Fire was over, it didn't feel right to end it without showing what it will look like in the future. I knew readers would appreciate that. So then I was like, well, I'll have Harper all grown up and I will have make it fun and I will have a bonus epilogue through her perspective. And that was super fun. And as soon as I wrote her chapter, and then Dean, which is her love interest, walked onto the page, I was like, I have to write this story. But I don't have time, but I have to do it. And that was last year. And then it was kind of out of sight, out of mind. And then I was really sick for a while in April, and I couldn't leave the house. I couldn't do anything. It was kind of miserable. So I had all this energy, like this just pent up, like nervous, anxious energy. And I ended up just writing her story, the first draft of her story in like 2 or 3 weeks. And that was in April. And so her book's already out. Like it came out in August. And so that wasn't even supposed to happen. So that took up a random chunk of time. There were other things I was supposed to be working on, but she needed to be written. She's done, and I absolutely love her story. So I'm glad I listened to my brain again, leaning into things that feel right. And so what I was supposed to be working on, and what I am working on now is so I have a romance pen name, and her name is Scarlett St. James, and I am writing Vampire Vikings right now. I know that's totally random. That's why she's under Scarlet, because that's not something Lindsey readers will 100%, want to read or whatever. But yeah, so that's what I'm working on now because I really wanted to have that gritty historical feel because I love the Vikings and all that, but I also wanted to write vampires because it just is fun and different from all the dystopian stuff that I've been writing. And so, yeah, there you have it. That's what I'm working on right now. They're called the Darkborn, and it's like a brotherhood, but there's also a woman vampire. I don't know what you call it, a female and the males and the female. I don't know, but anyway, it's really cool. So it's I get to really play with Norse mythology a lot, which is really amazing. Again, that's all into all my little side hobbies of all my dorkiness and academia that I get to tap into. So it's fun.
Well, how do you want people to reach out to you? Do you want them to continue going to Pogue Gone Rogue on your website?
That's a really good question. I think that, well, I have a Discord, which I'm in if people, because I know everybody kind of does their own, everyone kind of has like their lane that they like to stay in. I am on Instagram. I have my Discord, but Poke Gone Rogue is where I like to be the most, and it's where I post all my bonus content, so it's probably the best place to go anyway. So yeah, pokegonerogue.com. And then, I mean, you can always, reach out to me, email me, lindsey@lindseypogue.com, and ask me any questions you have, and I can tell you where to go and where to find whatever you need. So
I love that you also do direct buys for most of or all of your books on your website, including the audiobooks and ebooks. That's really wonderful.
yeah, no, I mean, I know a lot of authors are only in Kindle Unlimited or exclusively with Audible, but that makes my skin crawl. I can't do it. I don't want to give all these corporations with all this power more power. So my stuff is everywhere. You can get it through libraries, you can get it through me, you can get it at your favorite retailer. So yeah, all my things are everywhere. So
Well, perfect. I really hope anybody out there who hasn't heard of you goes and picks up The Longest or The Darkest Winter. The second one is The Longest Night, so my brain always
no, yeah, yeah.
does the two. But it is seriously just a really fun read, a little tense, but yeah. I hope everybody
Thank
goes out and
you.
reads your books.
Thank you. Thank you. And I appreciate you inviting me on. It's really fun to geek out about book stuff. I don't, being an author is kind of a lonely business, so it's nice to be able to talk about books and characters and world building and stuff. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, it was so lovely having you here.
Yeah, anytime.
Well, I hope everybody out there has a lovely day. Bye.